I would like to open the floor for questions. So you can raise your hands and if you have questions for the presenter.
I have a question to the second presentation about Nigeria. I mean, I found it very interesting, and I'm very grateful for the presentation showing the importance of the awareness of the people. I was thinking, when you presented like the percentage of the perception, like okay, climate change is caused by, I don't know, by my sins or by something higher. It came something into my mind when I was in Lokoja, the Seoul, like when the Benue River and the Niger coming together is a nice place, and then we went out even on a boat, and our fishermen, we were on a boat, took the water and started drinking. And if you know how Lokoja looks like, I was like, so you drink the water? And she's like, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter, because inshallah, like, God cleans the water so we can drink it. It doesn't really matter what we do to our environment. So this came into my mind, and I was just thinking, like, what is the local government doing? Or it would be interesting to know if there are already any initiatives started in order to raise the awareness of people what causes climate change, or what is the influence of the changing weather patterns on the farming methods and so on. It would be nice to hear a bit more about if there's anything going on.
Another question?
Thank you. Thank you for the three presenters. The presentation are really very interesting. I want to address my first question to the first presentation. I totally agree with you on the fact that we need really a targeted approach, that's mean at the local level. But I wonder if this may miss what we call a kind of interdependence between the regions. That means adaptation may be seen at the macroeconomic level or at the regional level. That means it depends, for example, if some regions have a kind of trade or between them. That means among the region, among the different villages, and if there is a kind of movement of people or of goods, this may help indeed to adapt. I don't know that, for example, some regions are around them, some other regions that will be less affected by climate change. So the other region may be part of the solution. So if we focus only on one village, on one region, we miss some information about the best way to adapt to climate change. So maybe we need, in addition to this focused or local approach, we need integrated approach or regional approach to take. More general question is about this. What is really the main message is this bottom-up approach, which is very important. But I wonder if how efficient. That means we need really to learn to interact with people, to learn from them. But how efficient in implementing their approach to adapt to climate change. That means if, for example, let's say we offer them other options to adapt, maybe it will be more efficient because they adapt depending on what they have. That's mean to the context in which they are living. But if we offer them other technologies, let's say fertilizers, way of irrigation, that in more sophisticated tools or ways to, does that mean that we can really make adaptation more efficient, or we can address better the climate change impact? So how you think about that? Thank you.
Another question? There's a question in the back.
I also have a question about the second presentation. When you talked about local perception about the cause of the climate change, did you find any major factors affecting their perception, like gender, age, distance to town, or did you find any strong relationship between different variables and their perception?
There is a question here.
I have a question for all three panelists. is really interesting, the concept of subaltern voice in policy making. It's critical also to make it relevant to ordinary people. But has any of the panelists tried to formalize this in terms of policy streaming? How do you formalize subaltern voice so that it becomes a constant source, that community wisdom becomes a constant source of inspiration for policy making?
I think I will take one more question at the back, and then I will give time to the presenter to respond, and we can take another round after that.
Hi, my name is Bob Mantia. My question, I have two questions. One goes to the second presenter, and then the other one to all of you. The first one is, do you have a national adaptation strategy in Nigeria? Because I noted that you mentioned that September 2012, there was a climate change policy. That was the first time that they had included a climate change policy in your MDGs. Is that right? And the other question goes to all three of you, more so to the second presenter. When you talk about belief systems and perceptions, has there been any conscious process to reorientate consciousness towards causes and nature of manifestations of climate change impacts? And have you had any successes, and what are your lessons? And that goes across to the other presenters too. Yeah, thank you.
So Navin can start.
Thank you for the.
I think it's
Okay. So I have two questions. First, question talks of that how to enhance efficiency of the bottom-up approach in the policy making. Well, let me tell you that there is a disconnect between the two things. Grassroots level realities are different, and the macro level policies are different. And most of the time, macro level policies are blanket policies, generic policies are there, which are less having targeted kind of approach. Now, what I had tried to showcase is that whenever there is a need-based context is there are certain issues are there. Now, we need to link those issues to the what has to be done. That is activity, and then further upscale into different programs. That too at a regional level, local level, and then formulate a kind of a macro level policy. So that's a way we should address. Now, so as a sequel to it, just I will address to Dr. Raghavan's question that how whether I could succeed in upscaling these kind of things to the national level of policy. Yes, indeed, we could do so. That how. Let me tell you the kind of a matrix-based approach which I had presented and even showcased, and due to paucity of time, I could not delve time further. What presently in the rural area, there are so many programs are there, but they are all in papers, and very few, maybe 6 or 7 are really functioning. Now, what has to be done is that looked at the basket of the programs, various programs currently in vogue, and how they are functioning. What is the various shortcoming limitation? Why they are not functioning properly, and then grouped into different categories. Now, once we are thinking, we are advocating for the various coping mechanisms and all those things, we should link those programs to the various programs currently in vogue, and then try to enhance the various effectiveness of those programs. Now, that if you look at 12th plan document, because Government of India has recently released 12th plan document. In the 11th plan document, we were having blanket kind of policies were there, but this plan document, because I was fortunate to provide my background material to the Planning Commission, and I was fortunate to have a direct discussion with them. What they have done this time is that various programs, what would be likely targeted domain, what would be various activities, what would be very verifiable indicators in a different log frame, short term, medium term log frame. So that kind of approach is really going to make a big way in the next planning period. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I have about 4 or 5 questions. I'll just speak to them. Well, you're right about Lokoja. Before I left Nigeria, Lokoja was completely grounded. The express, the major express linking the south and the north of the country was completely cut off. People couldn't travel, and literally, you would have to go on a canoe on the road. You would just normally go by road, literally. The only way you can cross from the north to the south of Nigeria was through canoe. It was that bad. Just last week. What is the local government doing about it? The question I first ask is, even at the national level, what we seem to be doing is just how to respond to the disaster. And I'll just quickly tie it down to what he has also said, that just last month, the Federal Executive Council approved the National Climate Policy, just last month. That's to tell you how much we are behind. Our first national climate communication to the UNFCCC was done 2003, and between then and now, no climate change policy. Again, part of the issue is that these things are situated within within the Ministry of Environment. And so we have people there who are academicians, who are professors, who have all this information. It doesn't trickle down to the places where these impacts are felt the most. So there's a problem about capacity. The extension officers that would ordinarily even teach, that's even where they exist, know little or next to nothing about access to information on expected rainfall and temperature at the national level. So really there is very little being done at the local level. At the national level, they're just still trying to respond to the disaster. So there's a need to build capacity. There's a need for a lot of awareness at the local level about the efficiency of and on their adaptation. Yes. So some of what the people responded to are not as it were adaptation in its strict sense. They are ways in which they cope. Well, it's arguable, but there's a difference between a coping strategy and an adaptation strategy. A coping strategy is something you do instant, immediate, and you try to deal with the issues. Adaptation strategy is what you would have done over time that would have evolved. Yes, for instance, when you have lost everything and there is no government to turn to, most times people just find succor in social networks, in churches, in mosques. The psychological balance you can get when somebody tell you it's going to be all right, don't worry. After you have lost everything, it's something that also, for the people, when they have nothing to rely on, it goes a long way in helping them to cope, to know that, okay, I can start all over again. So yes, you're also correct. You talked about the issue of technology, introducing crops that would be fast maturing, that are resistant to drought or resistance to flood. Yes, but also we balance it with the issue of even the access to these inputs. Are they? I mean, in Nigeria, you also talk about fertilizer. Fertilizer next to oil is the corruption ring in Nigeria. I mean, you procure, and some big-time, in quotes, farmers who don't have any farm buys it off, and then they sell it to the people who need to use it. So those issues are there. So fertilizer, billions, literally billions of naira is spent on it, but it doesn't get to where. And that's why I said the issue of even governance, even integrity, even transparency, even corruption, they are all a part of all of this package that we also need to address if we're going to be able to deal with the issue of adaptation. Somebody asked about the factors that are affecting their perception. Yes, it wasn't part of this presentation, but a lot of work was done. For instance, we saw that, very interesting, that women were able to perceive climate change. And like I showed, they feel the impact more because you know when the river lines begins to recede, because they go to the river. They go to fetch water. They go to bath for the children. They go to fetch firewood. So they know. So we can draw a corollary. The same thing with adaptation. Interestingly, we saw that women are also better able to adapt, contrary to what some literature say, because somehow they just have to find a way through this. So and there are a few other factors: access to education, access to information. All of this influenced their perception and also their adaptation. So all of that was done. It wasn't just captured in this study. And somebody also asked about national adaptation strategy. Yes. Is it GTZ? There's this German organization that worked with a few INGOs to put together an adaptation strategy. Yeah, it's a document, but how that document is being worked out is another thing entirely. Again, I have a copy of that document. I think it is rich. I also think that I am not too sure to what extent the people that are very locals, I mean, the people who haven't traveled all of their life in 40 years, 20 kilometers to the city center. They just haven't done. They've lived all their lives in the villages, and they are the farmers, hardworking. They get up 8 o'clock in the morning. They're in the farm. They don't go back until probably about 6 a.m., 6 p.m. They spend all their lives in the farm. To what extent they are incorporated into some of those strategies, I cannot say. But there is a climate policy. Again, like I said, situated. We are thinking maybe something like the Ministry of Planning and Development should take this up, because we're seeing deaths, we're seeing destructions, we're seeing hospitals are brought down, schools are brought down, we're seeing, so all of these issues, and we think they should just take it out of Ministry of Environment and do something that it's more integrated. So we do have, but how it's been practiced is another thing entirely. And so a lot of the talks about climate change happens in conferences like this. We just come, talk, do the presentation, talk about the CMGs, talk about our models, whether they are right or wrong, or they are perfect or not perfect. And a lot of time, that's where it just ends. And the people are just still there and are still as confused as they were. And then finally, there's also a question about any conscious process to reorientate. Yes, but it's difficult. It's difficult where, in the Nigerian system, in the local system, there is a reason for everything. Let me give an example. When I came, I saw Anu, I saw her name, and I said, what does Anu mean? And she said, well, I don't know. Anu probably means nothing. Well, I have a friend who's called Anu. Anu means mercy. Everything you do, there is a meaning to it. Something is behind it. And when a lot of time it's difficult to believe that our actions will influence the rain. The rain is so powerful. The sun is so powerful. No other person can do it except the gods. So it makes it sometimes difficult. And maybe in closing, I have said before that the climate change discourse in Nigeria is where the HIV/AIDS discourse in Nigeria was 20 years ago, where, yeah, it's a development problem. It's not just a health problem, where people will tell you, well, AIDS is not real. Or whether they tell you that, look, if you've got AIDS, just emasculate them or just lock them up and throw the keys into the river. But things are changing. So it can change. It will take time. It will take consistent. It will also take engaging people at the local level, the village chiefs, the imams, the pastors, because they speak to their people and the people listen to them. So they must all be brought in to these issues so that they can communicate effectively with the people. Thank you.
Yeah, I have to talk about that. These communities' perception and the planning process. Yes, the policy in our government, in most of the developing countries, they have clearly stated that the local adaptation plan of actions. They have we have the framework, and then they have to capitalize on these consult the local communities, because this is the inclusive, that the 80% fund go to the local communities, so that there's the planning from the bottom up. So these all are the part of the participatory approach. These all are the things to be the concern about the communities. And even in our case, we have the Nepal, we divided the 75 districts, and these 75 districts we have to rank the variability, rank of all the districts, and within the district, and then there are the planning about within there are maybe 50 different hamlets, and these hamlets, we identify the most vulnerable hamlet or village or community, and even the village which are the most vulnerable communities. So, and then reach to the most vulnerable communities, and then make the plan, to prepare the plan, consulting them, and then link to the district and to the national level for the vulnerable assessment to the plan. So this is the cycle. They have they have the past indoors, but I don't know how it work. Let's see in the futures. But in the clearly mentioned in the documents and the policies.
Any other questions? There is 2 questions.
My name is Adnan from Yemen. I'm not an economist, I'm plant scientist working molecular genetics. To be honest with you, most of the solutions you are providing us with policies can reduce the negative impact. But there is no smart solution can adapt with the very, very high change in the climate, the time of precipitation, great increasing degree, temperature, and even low precipitation, and the absence of precipitation in somewhere. What about the new technologies, which is almost a dream for many developing countries? Even the world, I guess in Europe, even 2005, they start to think about genetically modified organisms. Except apart from USA, all the world is almost need a lot of work in this science. You cannot find the plant reducing the requirements of water efficiency is reduced by 50%, except when you are dealing with genetically modified organisms and new technology. Even for evaluation of the stress toleration plants, you cannot find a technology other than molecular genetics, which needs a limited time and can provide a strong impact to deal with this. I don't find any research in this conference deal with policies, how to bring technology from developed countries and direct the money that can be given to many studies to establish technology in developing countries. I hope you pay attention for this issue in the future, and I don't know who can answer me about how to start this dream.
Navin will answer.
You have raised a very normative thoughts. But if you look at you have talked of a newer kind of technology. But if you look at the various yield gaps means technology what is available means that's in the shelf and the technology which farmer is using and the gaps. For the fine cereals, technology gaps ranges from 20 to 40% in the most of the semi-arid tropics, dryland areas, rain-fed areas. For the coarse cereals like millets or even sorghum and these kind of crops, gaps are close to around 50 to even 70%. So, means first thing what we are trying to convince the various people is let us bridge up those gaps first, which may not take much time because on the one hand we are talking of that let's say rainfall deviations are there. Deviations will cause some reduction in the yield levels to the tune of 10 to 20%. But you have technology available which can even offset those losses. So let us bridge up those gaps first. That is the first and the foremost things, because total rain-fed areas, nearly 70% of the world is plaguing with the yield gaps. So that is the first thing. Second thing, you have raised a very good question that we need to also look at the technology. Now, means on the one hand we are talking of low cost, immediate returns, immediate benefits. So we have seen that the models and on all those things like IFPRI is doing a mega project on futures. That means what kind of ID type or the plant type would be required in the 2050 or in 2100. So those kind of researches are being done. But my point of submission is that if we bridge up the gaps as quicker as possible, probably we will be better in providing some kind of relief or the succor to the farmers or the people.
Is anyone else want to answer the question about the importation of new...
When talk about the policy, because the climate change is the cross-cutting issues. So we will not talk about the focus on organic crops, and so these are cross-cutting. So like the developing country like us, we talk about reduce the poverty, and the income, the diversifications, and also applied some local knowledge and indigenous practice of what they are doing. So these, all the things to integrate to the holistic approach, to link to the all cost-cutting issue, mainly for the poverty reduction and income diversification, which minimize the impact all over all these climate change issue and others. So they are all to focus in this government policy are focused on the poverty reduction and income diversification, which may helps to reduce the vulnerability of not only the climate change but other aspects also. So these are the things.
So you can bring in technology, and it won't be adopted, or it won't just fit into the system. I'm talking of people who are farming with cutlass and hoe. So, and you know the issues with appropriate technology. So that's one issue. Second is the fact that I think this matter is just again about development. The people have historically learned how to cope, even if they are not adapting with the systems. If we can lift their capacity, provide at the level in which they can apply it, it would help. So a lot of time it doesn't have to do with the importation of technology that's foreign to the system, but look at them at their very local level, how to help them to improve. Access to better healthcare, access to better education, all of these things will better get them prepared to be able to deal in their own traditional way with the changes in the climate system.
Thank you. I think we are on time. Even
One last question.
Okay, let's take one.
I wondered, the second presenter, would you think that there is a local linguistic equivalent to climate change in any of your Nigerian languages?
It's interesting. In this study, we had to get people who speak the Thief language at the local language. It was tough. I don't speak those languages, Hausa languages, to communicate. But we were able to the people were able to explain to them, because they can't put words to it, but they know definitely something is just different. And in Nigeria, there are over 300 languages, so where do you want to start from? And I think those are also part of the issues that we need to deal with.
I think it's a relevant question because we are talking about local perception and people here. I think this question I will ask the two authors to tell us if there is a word or a correspondence for climate change in the local language, or at least the language that you know. How is there any? Naveen?
Yes. Very valid question, apt question. Well, the project which I was leading and I'm coordinating in 7 countries, let me tell you frankly that in Sri Lanka, in Vietnam, in Thailand, we could succeed to the greater extent of publicizing and to capture what exactly farmers want. And that was the basis that we could convince the government of these 3 countries to just imbibe some of our finding into the policy making. Now, when we went to China, there was a disconnect between the local language and the policy, because China's system of policy making is a different kind of thing. There is a different kind of thing. Now, but in South Asian context like India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, we could succeed. Surely because of language was not a barrier, and these days media and all ICT and all those things are in, so that has percolated down the line. So there is that kind of problem was not evident.
And Tiwari?
I don't see any problem over this language, because there are the local peoples what they perceive, but we capitalize these things and then you adaptation practices.
Thank you for coming to this session, and thank you for the debates.